recent weeks on purpose, which has touched me in a way. I am a destiny guy. I believe in destiny. I believe that every person has a unique and personal destiny and call upon their life. And so I believe that all of us have to find our destiny individually as well as corporately, but individually. Some months ago, I had Christian television on, and a fella come on. I was watching one guy, and he went off, and another one came on and says, "Don't touch that dial." He says, "I'm going to tell you how to have success in every area of your life. And you don't have to depend on something as flimsy as destiny." And I heard that, and I thought, my Lord, this fellow has a church of thousands of people. He ministers to millions of people on his television, and yet he doesn't understand the concept of destiny or purpose in a person's life. And so, as I began to think about that, I was thinking about what takes destiny from out here in the flimsy or ethereal world, and what makes it unique and personal and powerful in each of our lives. And I have one word for that. It's identity. Until you know who you are, your destiny is not personal. So to find your destiny and to walk in your destiny, the first question we have to answer is, who are you? Who am I? So tonight, I want to talk about the question of who are you? I can't give you that answer. No one can. But hopefully by the end of this evening, you will know where to find that answer. So, I want to look at the life of Moses, because this is a guy who, for 40 years of his life, had an identity crisis. So, I want to look at Exodus chapter 2, and I'm going to start in verse 11. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. And when he looked this way and that way, and he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together, and he said to him, what they did was wrong. Wherefore smitest thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a prince and judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me as thou killed the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. Now we need to go back a little bit and get a little background on what's taking place at this time. There was a lot going on when Moses was born. The Hebrew people had been in Egypt for approximately 400 years. They had come in under Joseph, who was basically the prime minister at that time, and to escape the famine in Canaan. So, as the people over the 400 years began to multiply and God showed favor upon them, Pharaoh began to become threatened by this. And he thought of ways to try to curb some of this threat that was taking place. So he first began to afflict and place the people in bondage. But this still didn't solve his problem, because the more he afflicted them, the more they prospered, and the more they reproduced. So he comes to a place where he says, okay, he puts out an edict that all male children of the Hebrew nation would be slain, put to the sword. This is the first instance of a slaughter of the innocents recorded in the Bible. The second one, of course, was when Jesus was born. But so this is under the circumstance that Moses was born. Now, he was born, and his mother, being a loving mother, didn't want to see her child killed. Devised a plan to make a basket to put Moses in, so that when the authorities came by, she could set him in the reeds in the river and could hide the child. Well, on one such occasion, Moses was in the basket, and the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh, came down to the river. She saw the basket and had it brought to her, and saw the child and thought it was just a beautiful child, and she wanted to keep it for her own. Well, Moses' sister, who was assigned the task of keeping an eye on the basket, saw this and approached the princess and says, "You're going to need a nursemaid, and I know just the person." So from that moment on, Moses was raised in two cultures. He was raised in the courts of Pharaoh. He was raised in the Egyptian government, in the Egyptian lifestyle. But he was also raised in his mother's knee. He heard the stories, he heard the rehearsal of everything that was passed through the heritage of the Hebrew people. And so we fast forward about 40 years. Here's Moses, and he's a man now. He's said he was great in word and deed. He had done many things. But he began to feel the tug of destiny upon him. And so he says, "I've got to go to my brother." So he leaves the courts of Pharaoh, and he walks out with his brother in the land. And the first day he walks out there, he sees an Egyptian slave master beating one of his brothers. And Moses, a man of great passion, looks around, sees nobody's looking, and he grabs the Egyptian and he kills him with his bare hands. He takes him out, he buries him, and he goes about his business, thinking that no one has seen his actions. The next day, he's out going around, and he stumbles upon two other Hebrew brothers fighting among themselves. And he steps between them and he breaks them up. He says, "Look, you're brothers. What are you doing? This is not the way to behave." And right there, Moses gets hit with a double blast of reality. The first one asked, "Who are you? Who made you king over us, ruler over us?" And the second blast was, "Are you going to kill us like you did the Egyptian yesterday?" Well, now the gig's up. He knows that he's found out, and he has to run. So he's out and runs back to the backside of the wilderness, where for 40 years he's a lowly shepherd. Here's Moses, the great man of word and deed in Egypt,